Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to talk about prehistory in Arkansas. Humans began to move into this abundant and fertile land more than 13,000 years ago. Initially, they survived by hunting and gathering. Over time, some groups settled down into a more stable farming lifestyle. They traded and interacted with one another. The Mississippians and the Caddo were present at the time the Europeans first explored the area in 1540. Our objectives in this module are to trace the progression of human movement and activity in Arkansas, identify the Paleo-Indian, Dalton, Archaic, Woodland, Mississippian, and Caddo periods in people, understand the distinguishing characteristics of each period and group. This period is known as prehistory because the humans from the time did not leave a written record. All we have is evidence archaeologists have found through artifacts the Indians left behind. The Pleistocene Age. Paleo-Indians arrived in Arkansas in about 10,500 BC and prevailed until about 9,500 BC. They appeared during the Pleistocene Age. They relied heavily on wild animals and fish for food and clothing. They used stone tools and throwing sticks, like the addle-addle. They hunted large animals, such as mastodons and mammoths, and smaller animals like deer, rabbits, and squirrels. They did not generally plant crops or farm the land. They dwelt in caves, much like the Rock House Bluff Cave in Pettigene State Park, and in other temporary shelters. Paleo-Indians did not form tribes, but lived in small groups of family and friends. They traveled to wherever they could find food and shelter and did not stay in one place for long. The Holocene Age. In about 8500 BC, the Pleistocene Age gave way to the Holocene, which continues today. Ice Age animals like mammoths died out at the beginning of the Holocene Age. Within the Holocene Age, we have the Dalton culture. That culture began with the Holocene Age, and the Indians there hunted large game, including modern-day elk and bison. This change required that the Daltons follow large herds as they moved from season to season. Again, the Dalton Indians is not the name of a tribe, but of a lifestyle. The Daltons lived in small family groups, as did the Paleo-Indians. Archaeologists have discovered many more Dalton sites spread far and wide than Paleo-Indian sites. The Dalton Indians did not plant crops, but relied primarily on hunting of large animals for food, clothing, and shelter. They processed animal hides into cloth and tent material. Though they followed the herds, they lived a somewhat settled lifestyle in permanent base camps from which they conducted their hunts. They also gathered wild plants, nuts, and berries for food, and they relied on fish. Archaeologists have divided the early Holocene Age into three periods: the Archaic, the Woodland, and the Mississippian. Each period represented an increasing shift to a more sedentary lifestyle, with established community sites and domestication of plants into crops. In other words, the shift was from wandering animal-based food sources to farming. The Archaic period was from about 8500 BC to 600 BC. Indians still lived in smaller family and friend groups and followed the herds, but they began to plant and harvest some wild plants in their base camps. The Woodland period was from 600 BC to 900 AD. During this period, communities began to form in larger settlements. Farming became a primary source of food. Mound building became common, and burial practices suggest a social hierarchy developed. The bow and arrow came into use, as did fired pottery used to store and preserve food. The various communities would trade foodstuffs and other items. Plum Bayou Mounds Archaeological State Park near Scott, Arkansas, formerly known as Toltec Mounds, developed around 700 AD. And finally, the Mississippian period ran from about 900 AD to about 1500 AD. A number of towns supporting upwards of 1,000 people and large-scale agricultural field crops developed. Those crops derived from varieties of beans, corn, and squash imported from Mexico. Extensive mound building occurred during this time. 3 cultural subdivisions developed in different regions of Arkansas. The Mississippian in the Ozarks and Mississippi River Valley north of where the Mississippi meets the Arkansas River. The Caddoan in the southwestern part of Arkansas and parts of Louisiana and Texas. And the Plaquemine in a small portion of extreme southeastern Arkansas and northern Louisiana. These groups traded amongst each other and produced structured hierarchical communities. They each had distinct cultural styles and religious practices. The Mississippians engaged in large-scale field agriculture. Specialized crafts evolved to support this lifestyle. This populous, mound-building society built large towns scattered northward all the way to the massive Cahokia Mound settlement near present-day St. Louis, Missouri. The Caddo established smaller family farmsteads located around settlements noted for their temple mounds. This group persisted into the historic period of European settlement, and the tribe exists today. The Plaquemines were well-organized, large communities similar to the Mississippian, characterized by large, flat-top mounds organized around plazas used for community gatherings and events. The communities also contained residential areas surrounding the plazas. And that concludes this lecture.